190 years ago, on February 2nd, 1835, Thomas Babington Macaulay, who was the member of Council of India, addressed his Minute on Education to the then Governor General of India, Lord William Bentinck, after which the English Education Act 1835 was passed. Now, what is the significance of this act? Who was Macaulay? What did he do? Why did he do? And how did he do? Let's answer all these questions in our video today. Namaskaram everyone, welcome back to Zesty Nimbu. This is Sri Rekha. Thomas Babington Macaulay, or Macaulay as he is well known, was 34 years when he first came to India and 35 years when he wrote that Minute on Education, more or less my age. His stance on our education system actually destroyed our Gurukul system. He had zero knowledge about Indian civilization, Indian history, Indian religion, but he successfully, single-handedly destroyed our education system. Macaulay considered the Western thought, literature, people, language, ideas far superior to the East. Why did he do it? What did he do to bring about that? And how did he do it? I've made a small presentation. I will explain all these questions with that particular presentation. I've titled this as How Macaulay Destroyed Indian Education. This is Thomas Babington Macaulay and this is Lord William Bentinck. We need to talk a little bit about Lord William Bentinck too. William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. Before that, everybody was called as Governor General of Bengal or Governor of Bengal. But he was the first Governor General of India from 1834 to 1835. 1 year term. Macaulay was only 35 years when he had written that Minute on Education. Both of them passed that English Education Act, which destroyed the Indian education. In fact, William Bentinck was the person credited with the abolition of sati. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, the founder of Brahmo Samaj, was working actively with the British to abolish sati and also to introduce English as a mode of communication, as the language for the masses. In 1813, British Parliament had passed the law. It said that we are setting aside 1 lakh rupees, and the reason is for the revival and promotion of literature and the encouragement of the learned natives of India, and for the introduction and promotion of a knowledge of the sciences among the inhabitants of the British territories. That was the reason to set aside 1 lakh rupees, which was an act passed by British Parliament in 1813. During that time, India used to have rupees, money in silver currency. If you convert that 1 lakh of rupees from 1835 to today, it would be more than crores of rupees, tens of millions of rupees. That is the value of that 1 lakh of rupees then. Macaulay didn't agree with it. We'll try to understand Macaulay's character. He had utter disdain and contempt for our civilization, our culture, our religion. He says the language, the dialect spoken among the natives of this part of India contain neither literary nor scientific information, so poor and rude that until they are enriched by some foreign language, no valuable work could be undertaken. As I mentioned, he had zero knowledge of India. Knowledge that he had of India was only from talking to people, that means hearsay and gossip. He himself mentions that I have no knowledge of either Sanskrit or Arabic. He mentions that he spoke to Orientalists. I have conversed both here and at home with men distinguished by their proficiency in the Eastern tongues. I'm quite ready to take the Oriental learning at the valuation of the Orientalists themselves. So he says, I have never found one among them who could deny that a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. He says intrinsic superiority of Western literature. We'll see that further. He further says it will hardly be disputed, I suppose, that the department of literature in which the Eastern writers stand highest is poetry. And I certainly never met with any Orientalist who ventured to maintain that the Arabic and Sanskrit poetry could be compared to that of the great European nations. So even when the poetry was the best according to him, that poetry was also no match for the European nations. So he says, when we pass from works of imagination, that means he's saying the work of the Indian civilization was a work of imagination, to works in which facts were recorded and general principles investigated. That means Western civilization, the works are facts. The superiority of the Europeans becomes absolutely immeasurable. All the historical information which has been collected from all books written in Sanskrit language is less valuable than what may be found in the most paltry abridgments used at a preparatory primary school in Britain, in England. That's what he says. The relative position of the two nations is nearly the same. That means there is no comparison. Arrogance. When you have no knowledge, you have the maximum arrogance, and that is proved here. He was a zealot for English language. He says we must teach them some foreign language, and that foreign language is English. And he goes ahead and says it stands preeminent among the languages of the West, according to him, English. And he also says it may be safely said that the literature now extant in that language is of far greater value than all the literature which 300 years ago was extant in all the languages of the world together. So English language has an amazing literature, even better than 300 years ago. So that is being a zealot to the highest degree. He mocks Hindu literature. So he says there are no books on any subject which deserve to be compared to our own. When we teach European science, we shall teach systems which by universal confession, whenever they differ from those of Europe, differ for the worst. Now what we have to understand here is the education system that we had, the ancient education system, when the Vedas were taught by the gurus to their shishyas, it was Shruti. It was communicated with word. Not much was written, but by Macaulay's time in 1835, there were many books available. But because of his arrogance, because of his disdain, contempt, and because of his lack of knowledge, he never read anything, only hearsay and gossip, because of which he thinks that our knowledge system is not comparable to the West. He mocks our science. It's less compared to Europe. I mean, it's so amazing. Now, look at this. We shall countenance at the public expense medical doctrines which would disgrace an English farrier. Our medical doctrines, Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita, they would disgrace an English farrier. Farrier means a person who looks after the horses. Our medical doctrines would disgrace an English farrier, it seems. And then astronomy. He says, which would move laughter in girls at an English boarding school. I mean, look at the gall of that person. India was always at the forefront of astronomy. We were the ones who gave the knowledge of the zero, the number system, so many things to the world, and this person has the gall to say that girls will laugh at an English boarding school studying about our astronomy. Now look at what he says about history. Abounding with kings 30 feet high and reigns 30,000 years long, and geography made up of seas of treacle and seas of butter. It means Milky Ocean. He is mocking our itihasas, our Puranas. Kings 30 feet high. That's how kings were described in the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Dasharatha had a reign of 60,000 years. Rama had a reign of 60,000 years. So he's mocking our history, our itihasas, and the geography too. We're talking about seas of butter, seas of treacle. And then in the text, he actually insults the Russians too. He calls them barbaric. And only after learning the English language, they became civilized. That's what he says. Government pays the students of Sanskrit and Arabic. Why was this? For that, we need to understand our Gurukula system. In our ancient Indian education, there were lots of Gurukulas, and the Guru used to teach the Shishyas. The Shishyas used to go begging for alms, get their food, do all the work. This developed their character, but they never paid money to study. So how did the Gurukulas run? They were run by the temples, by the kings, the donations given by rich people, merchants. So this is how the Gurukulas used to run. The students were never expected to pay anything for learning something. Only after they finished their education, they were supposed to give Guru Dakshina. And the British government actually was continuing that practice by paying the students to learn Sanskrit and Arabic. But he takes offense at that and says, why are we bribing people to learn Sanskrit and Arabic when we can actually teach English where people are paying the government to learn English? So he doesn't want to pay people to learn Sanskrit and Arabic. Instead, people are paying us, and hence we'll continue that education. He calls our texts and our philosophy as false texts and false philosophy. Calls it small intrinsic value with most serious errors, fruitful of monstrous superstitions, false history, false astronomy, false medicine, false religion. In fact, he mocks our religion in this way. Look at this. Learning how they are to purify themselves after touching an ass, or what text of the Vedas they are to repeat to expiate the crime of killing a goat. What nonsense. Look at the contempt he has for our culture, our works, for the Vedas, the oldest known literature to man. So that is why he wanted to bring about a change in the education. Now let's see what he did and how he did. So this is a very important slide. Indian in blood, English in taste. This is what he wanted to do. We must at present do our best to form a class who may be interpreters between us and the millions whom we govern. A class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. Brown Sahebs, brown Sepoys. To that class, we may leave it to refine the vernacular dialects of the country and to render them by degrees fit vehicles for conveying knowledge to the great mass of the population. This is what he wanted to do. And how did he do it? This is extremely important. This is how he destroyed our education. Strike at the root of the bad system. What does he call as a bad system? But I would strike at the root of the bad system which had been fostered by us. I would at once stop the printing of Arabic and Sanskrit books. He says the books are not being sold. English books which were printed were making money. They were making profit of 20%. But the books printed for Arabic and Sanskrit are just rotting. The amount of paper which is being wasted on those books could actually be saved. It's a waste of paper, he says. He says, I would abolish the madrasa and the Sanskrit college at Calcutta. Banaras is the great seat of Brahminical learning, Delhi of Arabic learning. If we retain this, that is enough. We are doing enough for the Eastern languages. And no stipends shall be given to any students who may learn Sanskrit and Arabic. Let them have that choice of either learning Sanskrit or English, but we are not going to pay people to learn Sanskrit. So this is how he hit at the root of our education system. When I say that, I say it with sadness because Gurukulas used to run by the money given by people, by the government, by the merchants, by the temples, temple economy. But when the government itself takes a decision to cut the funding to the Gurukulas, where will the gurus go? How will they teach the students? And that was a death knell to our education system. This was how Macaulay and William Bentinck destroyed our education system, and till today, after 190 years, we are still having that problem. Good thing is, the Indian government has introduced NEP 2020. So in that, it's mentioned that the students have to be taught their mother tongue, some other Indian language, Sanskrit, and English, of course. You can't deny that English is very essential. In fact, Macaulay had predicted this, saying that English will become the language of commerce in 1835. That's still continuing. You can't deny it. You have to learn. But you also have to learn your mother tongue, some other Indian language, Sanskrit, and English. So this is what the NEP 2020 document has done. This is the solution. You have to teach your kids all these things. When I was reading this minute on education for the first time, I've heard of Macaulay. I know how he made sure that English becomes the language of communication, but I've never gone in depth. This is the first time I've done that. It's freely available. This document is freely available on the internet. Please go ahead and read it for yourselves. It's a little difficult. You can use ChatGPT to convert it into easier English. You will understand the impact. We are still facing that after 190 years. It made my blood boil. I can't deny it. We are all English slaves. English in taste, Indian in color and blood. Nobody can deny that. But we have to make efforts so that at least our next generation thinks in a better way. Please go ahead and read this document online. I'll post the link in the description. You can either scan the WhatsApp link on the presentation that I had shared, or you can go to the description and click the link to join my WhatsApp group. Do like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and whenever possible, please support us with super chats and super stickers. If I'm doing a live or a premiere, you can do that. It'll motivate me further. I hope you have liked today's video. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, namaskar.